Сайн байцгаана уу хүн түзэгчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай дефакто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Францын Орано компани уурхайн хариуцсан ерөнхийлөгч ноён Никола Мас оролцож байна.
Никола Мас Орано группын уурхайн бизнес нэгжийн тэргүүн гүйцэтгэх захирал. Парисын политехникийн сургууль гүр зам барилгын үндэсний сургуульд тус суралцсан. 1999 онд Lafarge группын цементийн үйлдвэр төв офист инженер. 2006 онд Их Британи дахь Colton цементийн үйлдвэрийн захирлаар томилогдсон бөгөөд 2009 онд Lafarge группын Франц дахь төв офист Төв Европ, Хуучин Зөвлөлт холбоот улсын хамтын нийгэмлэгийн улс орнуудыг хариуцсан маркетингийн дэд ерөнхийлөгчөөр ажиллаж байсан. 2011 онд хуучнаар Areva группын Казахстан, Нигер, Канад долборлолт явуулж буй уурхай үйл ажиллагаа хариуцсан дэд ерөнхийлөгч. Мөн холбогдох хамтарсан компаниудын төлөөлөн удирдах зөвлөлийн гишүүнээр томилогдсон. 2014 онд Areva группын бизнес хэсгийн тэргүүн дэд гүйцэтгэх захирлаар томилогдсон группын дэлхийд даяарх үйлчлэгээний бизнесийг хариуцж байсан. 2018 онд Paramount компани үйл ажиллагааны төгөлдршил, дижитал хувьслын хөтөлбөрийг удирдан хэрэгжүүлсэн. Тэрээр дээрх хоёр албан тушаалыг хаших хугацаанд Areva группын цөмийн реактор үйлчлэгээний бизнес групп болон Paramount компани гүйцэтгэх хорооны гишүүн байсан. Тэрээр марафон гүлтийн тамирчин юм.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gaga.
Yeah, your time is good morning now. Here is at afternoon. Well, may I call you Nicholas?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay. Nicholas, you have been recently in Mongolia, and I understand Orano officially had submitted proposal or draft agreement, investment agreement to the Mongolian government. Is it right?
Yes, this is correct. This is a key milestone in the development of our project. This comes just after the completion of the industrial pilot and at a time where we are updating our feasibility study. It's a key milestone in the project.
So let's talk about that, about this milestone and about the project. So I understand also you have completed your almost 2 years practice or pilot project. And you have successfully produced this so-called yellow powder, right? So
yes.
Tell us about that project first. What is done?
So first, we've been in Mongolia for 25 or 26 years now. And after a long phase of exploration, we have made a significant discovery, the Zovshovo deposit. This is one of the top 10 deposits in the world for uranium. After a phase of investigation and properly defining this deposit, we have built an industrial pilot. The aim of that pilot is to demonstrate the mining techniques that we plan to use to mine this deposit, to demonstrate it technically, and also to demonstrate it from an health and safety and environment perspective, and use it as a showcase to show to the local population, the local schools, but as well the representatives from the administration, what in situ recovery mining technique looks like. Mm-hmm. This pilot operated for 2 years, as you rightly said. It produced about 10 tons of yellow cake. Yellow cake is basically uranium. And about 700 people visited this pilot during its operation. All of them could ask questions, make comments. And from that perspective, this really was a success.
Okay, so let's go in this way. First of all, you have discovered a uranium deposit, and you have made the first pilot to produce this yellow powder, which is working successfully. And now you're going to have invest to this project. How big investment is that, and for how many years?
So the pre-production investment is about $500 million US. And the total investment over the life of the project will be about $1.6 billion. Mm-hmm. This project will be operating probably in 2028 for the first production. And then the mining operation will last for 40 years. At the end of those 40 years, the site will be completely reclaimed and put back to nature or to agricultural use as it was before.
So as it was before, after 40 years from now?
Yes. Yes, it's
Because your depth, I understand. Tell us about the depth and why it will stay after all this 40 years as it is now. Tell us about this technology so that people understand. Very curious, because on one side they are afraid of uranium, and on the other side they don't know well this mining of uranium in Mongolia. We know gold. It's okay. We know the plus and the minus parts. But we don't know uranium. That's why I'm asking the question. Please tell us the deposit location, how deep, and how will it be somehow harmful?
Okay. So the mining technique we would use in Mongolia is called in situ recovery. This mining technique is today being used for the production about 50% of the uranium produced in the world. It has been used in the past in Australia and in the US, for example, and it is currently used in Kazakhstan and in Uzbekistan mainly. Mm-hmm. This technique is particularly suited when uranium is located in sandy kind of grounds, a few hundred meters below ground level, say 250 meters, for example, and it is confined by a layer of clay, which makes it confined. Mm-hmm. The technique we use is a technique where we will drill wells. Using those wells, we inject a solution that puts uranium in solution. We pump it back to the surface, and then this is processed using a fairly simple facility that extracts uranium from that solution and then process it to make the yellow cake. Mm-hmm. The benefit of that mining technique, as all the people that visited the pilot could see, the benefit is that you have a very, very limited footprint on the surface. Mm-hmm. You're not using a lot of energy to dig a big hole or to dig big cavities. Mm-hmm. You're not disturbing the surface. And at the end, once you've finished mining, you can dismantle all the surface installations and recultivate the site, plant saxaul back, and the site will be back to nature, as I said.
Okay. So you once were producing, then yellow cake comes out. How many tons we talk about compared with, say, Kazakhstan, who is the largest player, who is now almost producing half of the world uranium, right?
Okay, yes, yeah. Exactly.
So please compare that.
So this site, over the total mine life, will produce about 70,000 tons of uranium. 70,000 tons of uranium with a mine that will produce between 1,000 when it will start and 2,500 tons per year. A mine producing 2,500 tons per year makes it a fair size mining site compared to the mining sites operating in Kazakhstan. Of course, Kazakhstan overall is producing more than 2,500 tons per year. It's producing 20 to 25,000 tons per year. But this is because they have 10 to 15 operating mines. So the Zovshovo mine as such will be in size comparable to the mines operating in Kazakhstan. And if other mines are being developed in Mongolia, then the size of Mongolia on the worldwide market will increase. And I think that's an important point. We believe that Mongolia has been vastly unexplored or underexplored for uranium, and there is a significant potential for other discoveries. Of course, the first project needs to go through first, and this is our proposal with the Zovshovo project.
Tell us about Orano in general. How big is the player is in this energy sector, and how many percent of France energy consumed are produced from the nuclear power station?
So Orano today is in the top three industrial players for the nuclear fuel cycle globally. We're involved in uranium mining, then conversion, enrichment, and we are also reprocessing spent fuel from the nuclear power plants. France, as the country, has made the choice 50 years or 60 years ago to use nuclear power to produce electricity. Electricity is only one share of the total energy consumed in a country, because any country also consumes fossil fuels for, I don't know, heating systems or industry or cars sometimes. But when it comes to electricity, France made that choice, and today 70% roughly of our electricity comes from nuclear.
In France, 70%.
Yes, exactly, 70%.
Remember a few years ago, there was a very uranium after Fukushima was not in fashion at all. And then now, even the Germany is postponing closure of the one final nuclear power station. Britain is going to increase more. China is keep building more and more stations, nuclear power stations for electricity. Why is that?
In fact, I think today nobody debates anymore the fact that climate change is happening and that the reason for climate change is human activity, and in particular the use of fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. So then when countries want to move away from fossil fuels, they will then focus on renewable energy, which is of course to be developed, but they also realize that they need a base load. And today, the base load to produce electricity in a carbon-free way is hydro, when you have the chance, to have a country that is suitable for hydroelectricity, and the other option is nuclear, of course. All the other base load are all generating carbon emissions. So most countries that really want to tackle climate change and reduce their emissions are contemplating nuclear today.
Producing this yellow cake, is it a part of, there is a so-called, once it's replacing fossil fuel, it may be a certain credit of certain CO2 economy credit. Is it a part of that scheme, or it is too early stage?
The yellow cake production doesn't, as such, generate CO2 credit, at least in the existing schemes today. Okay. Maybe that would change in the future, but for what exists today, that's not the case. But producing carbon-free electricity in some jurisdictions may give you CO2 credits, yes. Okay. At the moment, there is no worldwide CO2 market. It's mainly regional-based.
Well, say we produce the raw materials. Wouldn't be any possibility Mongolia is producing through also nuclear power from their own cake?
So, yes, there is a possibility. There are a few steps in between. So the yellow cake cannot be used directly in nuclear power plants. It needs to be converted into UF6, and that UF6 is then enriched. And after that enrichment, this is put in fuel assemblies, and the fuel assemblies go in the nuclear reactors. So there are a few industrial steps. But of course, if one day Mongolia builds a nuclear power plant, the uranium going in that nuclear power plant could come from Mongolia, of course.
Initially, we can buy back the ready materials to fuel these power stations, correct?
Yes, this is correct.
Yeah.
You will probably need to get it processed out of Mongolia into a nuclear fuel that will then go in the Mongolian nuclear power plant.
Back?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about another aspect of the yellow cake production in Mongolia. And I understand it's also initially, in the process we have a lot of chemical substances. It is maybe a chance for us to develop chemical, some industry, some, I don't know, at least some products that, is it any way there's side products that we can use off?
So if the Zovshovo mine gets developed, there is a number of activities that would be localized in Mongolia. First of all, drilling would be localized, but as well the pumps assembly and pump maintenance, screens maintenance, all the activities to support the development and the maintenance of the processing facilities. All of that would be localized in Mongolia. When it comes to reagent and chemicals, the processing of sulfur into sulfuric acid would be done in Mongolia and would actually be done at the mine site, most likely. And a number of other processing activities could be developed in Mongolia, of course. Either that would be specific to the Zovshovo mine, or that could be shared facilities with other existing mines for other minerals, for example.
So I understand that sulfur acid will be used, and the production of sulfur acid itself or other reactives can be produced somehow. We can develop that capacity to produce some of the reactives, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's all become a matter of size of the market. So for some of the activities, the offshore mine will be enough to justify the development of production capacities to feed the offshore mines. For some other reagents, it would need to be shared with other mines in uranium mining or in other minerals.
I see. Because we are now completing a refining factory, which will be connected by pipeline from a deposit 500 kilometers away. But in the process of refining the crude oil, there will be a lot of chemical materials to be produced, are produced during the refining process. Is there somehow any link with your project together?
One typical example would be if that refining plant produces sulfur, and that sulfur could be used to produce sulfuric acid for the need of the offshore mine. Yes, that would be a typical example.
Yeah, that would be a kind of multiplication of two projects.
Yes.
Another thing, how many you think you will have jobs for Mongolians? How many jobs will be created?
At this stage, we estimate that the offshore mine will employ directly about 800 people, and will also use contractors and contracted services for about the same number of people. So that would be in total about 1,600 people.
1,600?
Yes, jobs, direct and indirect. And in the way we operate Orano Mining as a company, we are very proud of maximizing the development of local employment. So there will be, of course, a few expatriates to bring expertise initially, but 98 to 99% of the jobs created in Mongolia will be jobs for Mongolian citizens.
More than 95. Okay, we talk about almost 1,300 jobs at least, right?
Yes, over 40 years.
During 40 years, and a constant amount of jobs. Another question is about you say you will invest 1.6 billion or so US dollar during the process of life. And now the price for uranium is good, as never before, high before, right? The time of fall, it was twice or so less than now. Am I right?
Yes, you're correct.
Let's say, assume that the price will go in that way because the future demand of the nuclear power sources of energy. Then, with that price, what would be that money Mongolia will receive overall? How total generation of the revenues? Then certainly a price will become unknown, but you have a certain feasibility study, I understand. What would be the benefit for Mongolians?
Okay. So the benefit for Mongolia would be what would be coming from taxes, direct taxes and indirect taxes, say royalties, employment taxes, and all those activities. At this stage, we're finalizing it, but we estimate it will be more than $1 billion of direct benefit for Mongolia through taxes.
$1 billion.
Benefits for Mongolia, yes, $1 billion. Of course.
$1 billion per year?
No, 1 billion in total.
Total, yeah, that's 1 billion total a year. It's almost 30 years of exploration, right?
Yes, it has been 30 years of exploration.
Okay.
And now this is the project. The benefit for Mongolia will include taxes, as we said. It will also include all the positive aspects on development of the local economy. It will include the benefit in terms of skills development, training of people, new technology acquired. And as well, the company will contribute locally with the local populations to benefit for improvement of the local hospitals or local schools, all the activities that we can do for sustainable development in the region.
Okay. You said after 10 years, as the project ended, then within another 10 years, there will be recovery, rehabilitation of the local place. That money, which is used for that part of the project, is it accumulated from now, or what kind of, because in Mongolia, say, every year certain money is accumulated, and then at the end used for recovery. What is your plan on that?
So this will be part of the discussion on the investment agreements that we will have with the government of Mongolia. Our proposed approach is to create a dedicated financial fund and to put money on that fund every year. So say after a couple of years after the start of production, we would make an estimate of the total cost for site reclamation at the end, and then every year put the corresponding amount on a bank account. This would be our proposal. This is what we are doing today in Kazakhstan. This is what we are doing in a way in Niger. This is a practice that we think is safe and secure for the government to, so that they are sure that the money will be there to do the site reclamation. We think it's a responsible way of doing it.
That will be in the account of Mongolian government or in the account of your company? How does it work?
And the way we're doing it, or we're proposing to do it, it's an account that belongs to the company, but visibility is given on it to the government, and the company cannot withdraw that money for other use than site reclamation.
Well, that sounds much better than in the account of the government.
Well, yeah.
Okay, let's talk. Finally, my question is how you will transport. I mean, how big is that final yellow cakes, and will China or Russia allow you to do so? Because it's a nuclear active, radioactive element.
Absolutely. So one thing that people don't know is that today uranium is being transported around the globe in a very simple manner. You have to do it properly, but uranium is put in drums. The drums are put in containers, and then it is transported by road, by train, by ships. And uranium goes from Australia to Canada, Australia to France, Kazakhstan to China, of course. It can be transported fairly easily.
So,
as it can, yeah.
China and Russia will allow you, because is it international kind of agreement, or how does it work?
Today, if I take an example, uranium from Kazakhstan, which is also in a way a landlocked country like Mongolia would be, uranium from Kazakhstan is delivered either to the Chinese border, or it is delivered to Russia, or it is delivered to Canada and France. It is shipped across Russia by railroad, or it can also be shipped across the Caspian Sea, and then Azerbaijan and Georgia, and then to the Black Sea, and so on. So the logistics is not so complicated.
Oh, I see. So it's not that technically a hard issue. On the other hand, Russia is now under sanction, and yet I understand nuclear or cake, uranium cake, are not under the sanction, as Russia provides that fuel to many parts of the rest of the world. Isn't it true?
This is correct. Civil nuclear activities are not under sanction at the moment. They are not under sanction under the US regime, nor under the European Union or United Kingdom regime. And this is valid for yellow cake, but as well conversion and enrichment services, and as well technologies for the development of nuclear power plants. This is currently not under sanction.
Final question. When we expect the production to start, provided that the investment agreement, you have two agreements, investment agreement, the other is, just one agreement or two agreements?
In fact, what we are discussing at the moment is the investment agreement and the consequences of the shareholder agreement.
Uh-huh.
And if we discuss that this year and get approval and find an agreement with the government of Mongolia this year or early next year, then in 2024, we would have the decision to mine, start the construction project, and production could start in 2028. That would be the plan.
If everything goes as planned, 4 years of preparation or making the plant, and
Yes.
From 2028, Mongolia is the proud producer of the yellow cake in the world. All right.
Absolutely. Mongolia is joining the club.
How many countries are in this club so far?
In fact, probably 15, if not more. To name a few, you have Canada, Australia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Niger, Namibia, China, Russia, of course, Ukraine, Brazil has got some capabilities. There are exploration in Argentina as well. So, in fact, a number of countries are today producing or exploring uranium.
And it needs certain international standard, regulations, safety. All this thing is somehow coordinated by UN agency, something?
The International Agency for Nuclear Energy is coordinating some of those activities and defining standards. Uh-huh. One of the particularities with uranium mining is that there is no artisanal mining of uranium mining. It's always being done by professional companies with high standards. It hasn't always been the case in the past, but today, no artisanal mining and only professional companies.
My final question, is it true that the producing, not yellow cake, but the producing the final fuel for power, that country is taking back the waste of uranium, the nuclear energy station? Who is taking care of it?
So the nuclear power companies, electricity companies, they are the owner of their fuel. And they cannot dispose and they cannot send the fuel back to the countries where uranium was produced. Each country has to deal with its own spent fuel. So France is dealing with its spent fuel. The US are dealing with their spent fuel. It doesn't exist a case where spent fuel is sent back to the countries where uranium was mined. So to say it differently, nuclear waste from the company using nuclear power will not be sent back to Mongolia.
I see. Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas, for this interview, and I hope it is a great contribution to our knowledge on the uranium and in particular yellow cake. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. За хүнд үзэгчдээ өнөөдөр манай дефакто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Францын Орано компани, хуучин Арева гэдэг байсан нэр нь Орано компани уулуурхаа хариуцсан, эсвэл олборлолт хариуцсан захирал ерөнхийлөгч нь, олборлолт хариуцсан ерөнхийлөгч нь Никола Мас оролцлоо. Баярлалаа.